G'day traders, we're going to wrap up of Wednesday the 9th of May. Just before we get into it, you'll see a box of text here. What I want to do is just add a little bit more value to these sessions and specifically follow a few areas. Now I outline these areas in a sec, but the idea of this is, I guess, not to specifically know about the results of these three areas which are outlined in a sec, but more to give an overall impression of what these markets are doing. And you'll notice, for example, so this first area here, what I'm going to do is look at the 5-minute chart, and the second area here is based on the 1-minute chart. So first 5-minute pullback on retracement. So what I'm always going to do is look at this first trend, whether it's up or down. So you can see we've gone sideways. We've been getting a bit of that lately. Then we've got our first trend. So we need to see a trend, and then we're looking at the first retracement or pullback. So in this case it's a retracement, and seeing what happens. And I'm breaking it down into two categories: just as is. So as soon as this predictive crosses to the upside, what happens? And then a subcategory of that is going with the dailies. So for example, today we're on the downside with the dailies, so we'd be looking for sells. So in this case, we got the set up with the dailies chart. And what will happen, having those two subcategories, what we should find is the result here with the dailies, the percentages that we get from this we should start to get a higher return as far as the just as is sort of result. But like I was saying before, it's not so much about the individual results. Yes, I want to record them and have something to follow along, but from that you should definitely be able to learn from it. And whether you're a PowerPoint trader, power fade trader, bullet trader, got your own trade, identifying what this market's doing. Once we get a trend and then this first pullback, you can take that information and apply it to any sort of trading technique. And then also having the breakdown between just the signals as is and the daily signals, or the signal with the dailies, also will start to incorporate and see real information as to why it's so important to go with the dailies or the longer term view. So that's what it's more about. It's the education process as far as recording actual individual results. I've also got 1 minute area here. So basically what we're looking for, 10-point trend, which we had today, and then taking the first PowerPoint. So after we get a good trend, that first PowerPoint pullback, and then also the second PowerPoint after yellow. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a 10-point trend, quite often will be, but we're looking for that, it as the sniper, where we get a yellow, then we wait for the second pullback or retracement from that yellow, the second PowerPoint. It doesn't always come up every day, it doesn't come up after every yellow either. It's something that these two have been striking about 70%, but as of the last few weeks, especially the second PowerPoint after yellow, it's had a bit of a tough time, and those strike rate isn't quite as high, but it's still an area to keep an eye on, and you'll certainly learn something from it. Righto, so let's get into it, the daily analysis. So here's the candle this Wednesday that we're talking about here. When we opened up this particular day, it was the first day we opened the cash market below this support area that we'd be keeping an eye on at about 1352, 53 area. So we were sitting below that. And it was a day that potentially the sellers could really go on with it. In the pre-market we did have a pretty big sell-off, so that was the only concern, that maybe they had kind of did their dash in the pre-market, but definitely a day to go with the sellers. In the end, you can see start off with, we got the sideways market, then we did get a push down, but in the end we got this bounce, and we spoke about it at the top of the day, saying because there was those sellers in the pre-market, to expect a bounce. I really expected it early on, so I thought this was a bit of the bounce we had here, and then we started selling off. So I definitely thought we could get a continuation of the sells, but in the end this bounce that we did talk about came, but it came a lot stronger and with a lot more intensity than we certainly believe would happen. But anyway, we pushed down lower. You can see as this market's pulling back here, and it kind of shows it better on the 1 minute chart. Let me flip over to the 1 minute chart here. Probably not this PowerPoint, but just above this PowerPoint you can see there's resistance at the bottom of this sideways action here. All the other markets were holding this situation as well. They weren't breaking to the upside. So normally when there's an uptrend coming like this, the other markets will tell you, and they'll be sitting a lot higher, say up around here somewhere. So we had the dailies, the other markets, resistance here. So I thought this is a potentially great area to sell off from, an area that will normally quite well work well. But in the end, it proved that the buyers were just too strong. But at that point there was no real evidence that the buyers were going to come in that strongly. But so overall, an area that normally works well, but this particular day failed. From there, back on the 5 minute chart, this is where we pushed up. Eventually the predictive average crossed up here, so this is the area we were looking for at the end of this candle in regards to the first pullback retracement that we're going to record. So just a note of how I enter this. So what we're going to do is look for 8 tick profit, 5 tick stop out. Whenever I enter this personally, when I look for the better ones, always go for a 1, 2 or even sometimes 3 tick better fill, because naturally at the end of the candle, just because the predictor's crossing up, you'll just get a bit of a push up, and then before it pushes down, and there's an opportunity to get a better fill there. So just to keep things very simple, I'm not going to go for 2 or 3, sometimes you miss the opportunity. 2 or 3 tick better fill, just go for a 1 tick better. So we'll keep it standardized. Whenever the candle closes, look for 1 tick better fill. So it would have been here, and then that's where we got the 8 ticks, and it just got 8 ticks. Market's pushed up higher, so let's pop over to the 1 minute chart. So eventually we've got our 10-point trend up round here, and our yellow power point as well. So interesting thing about this, you can see here the first power point we recorded as a 1 from 1. It's worked, even though it looks like this is the first power point. It was actually back here. So what happens with the first power point, you always want to go 1 tick earlier. So what happens with that is, so when you do go back over the charts and see the PowerPoint, sometimes just when it flashes on the PowerPoint, you might not get the fill. So we always go for 1 tick better. Now this is a bizarre situation where it's come 1 tick before the PowerPoint, so the PowerPoint might be just sitting here. And to me, I might have been concerned there wasn't even a fill there, so I wouldn't have counted that. But we did get a couple of confirmations from the room that they took the first pullback PowerPoint, with that 1 tick earlier entry, and they got filled on live accounts. So the actual area is here, even though it doesn't look like it, and there'll be a rare occurrence where you come within 1 tick of the PowerPoint, get a fill, and then not actually see the PowerPoint get hit. So we actually have to count it from here, and that's where it would have happened on a live account. So we get a 1 from 1 there. Just to continue on, so obviously we've got the yellow, so now we're waiting for this potential grey PowerPoint or 2 PowerPoint pullback. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So we did hit a couple of upper power points before coming back, then we've hit this one, and then eventually we got to the second one here, and it's actually failed. So you can see that's why we got a 0 from 1. But overall, not a bad area, and I'll take you back to the 5 minute charts and show you why. So here we are on the 5 minute charts. We got this great uptrend. We're pulling back, so again, this is kind of this true fade 5 minute pullback area. Would have been at this candle here, but in this case, on the new trend, looking for a pullback and then continuation, it's a bit shallow. After quite a decent trend like this, you're looking for a bit more of a decent pullback, and you can see that area there actually had support down here. So the market was always potentially going to head down to this area here and push through that area. So a very risky entry up here, but a lot better to look for it down here. And there was actually, depending on where you entered, there was actually a 2-point push up here. And so the market certainly got a bounce, but in the end they decided to push lower, and then this grey came up round about here, and you can see it's the grey, not a bad area. Would have looked to go a little bit lower, and you can see the market has bounced, because what it's doing is coming back and retracing to, or pulling back to these tops of this sideways mark, and that's always going to be an area that's going to want to come back, touch, and then go back from. So the grey just sitting a little bit higher there, but still had a lot of value, and just pushed through it before turning back to the upside. So here we go, pushing up higher again. We basically then got this second pullback of the trend here. So when we're starting to look at second pullbacks and things like that, the market's getting very extended. It's an area that you can still take and look for buyers, but just to be very careful, I guess, as we start to get extended markets, and eventually this sell side is going to come back in, especially with the dailies the way it is. So this little push down here, I'd see this as a lot more of a pullback, as more of a new trend starting. And when you look at the other markets, they're all really starting to break to the downside. So it looks like the sellers are really trying to come back and have a bit of a go. They popped up here, you can see, so the predictive's crossed up here, but clearly the moving average is pointing down. So this would be a 5 minute fade where we look to sell from this area here. And normally an area you can see it has got a bit of resistance. It's coming back and touching this kind of bit of a low point they made here. So again, an area that potentially would have a lot of value to sell off from, but you can see it's just popped up a bit further before going down. So I think these, today and overall a tough day to trade, quite volatile markets. 30 power points hit, uh, a day where it was difficult to be on the front foot, and a few areas that normally do hold, the market just seemed to push through them before turning around. So that area I thought had good value, and it just managed to push through it. And then, like I said, that very first area down here, let me get back to it. Back down around here where I thought, this is right back before we knew how intense these buyers were, an area that could potentially hold on, and the sellers go on with it on the daily chart. But I think it proved that the buyers want to have a bit of a bounce, since we did have quite a sell-off in the pre-market. But that's all in hindsight now. But that's what I guess we can see today as a bit of a bounce. I certainly wouldn't say that the sellers are gone. They're still in control of this market. The buyers just wanted to have a bit of a bounce and certainly not let the sellers have it all their way. So that's a wrap up for Wednesday. A lot to kind of digest there. Lots of action in the market, and of course we've got this new little section that we'll just quickly touch on it for the first couple of minutes of each of these wrap ups, just so we've got something that's a little bit more specific to follow, and we'll certainly follow that through time and start to get some figures here and some percentages and see what it brings. And from that, we'll definitely learn some new stuff. Right, guys, speak to you Thursday.